Well, airlines have been quietly preparing the giant task of airlifting millions of doses of the vaccines in a mission to end the global pandemic. The International Air Transport Association has called it, quote, the mission of the century. And the WHO has compared it to climbing to the top of Mount Everest. Joining us now from Northwest England to explain more is Bloomberg's transport and aviation reporter, Christopher Jasper. Christopher, it's great to have you on the show with us this afternoon. Give us an overview of just how large and complex this task will be for airlines. You have some incredible statistics about the tall task ahead of them.
That's right. According to the International Air Transport Association, the entire airlift, so we're talking about something that could span 2 years, of course, would occupy 8,000 747 freighter aircraft. That's not the passenger version, that's a fully freight 747, 8,000 of those. Now, there are only 2,000 cargo aircraft in existence, and obviously only a few of those are 747s. So the calculation is that this airlift is going to need a vast number of passenger aircraft to be drafted in as well, carrying the doses in their holds. The problem there, as IATA stresses, and the airlines themselves, is that a relatively few passenger aircraft are actually in operation at the moment. They've, especially on long-haul routes, still largely grounded because of restrictions on travel. So there's a bit of a catch-22 situation there. The world needs more passenger planes in service, but those passenger planes aren't coming into service because it's not really safe for people to travel. So the big push now is to try and get as many planes operating, whether freighters or passenger planes, in the hold as possible, maybe using travel corridors and testing so that the vaccine can be rolled out.
Okay, well, talk about how they're doing this, because I know this is something that you looked into significantly, especially when it comes to the Pfizer vaccine, because it has to be kept at such a cold temperature. Are airplanes that are not outfitted for cargo right now, passenger airplanes, would they be able to actually take this precious cargo?
Yeah, it turns out they would actually. Certainly all those dedicated freighters can, but essentially, even with the Pfizer vaccine, it's kept at such a low temperature, as we know, minus 70 degrees Celsius or so, that no aircraft hold, whether in a freighter or a cargo plane, is really equipped to be chilled to that level. So the Pfizer vaccine will in fact be carried in special containers that are chilled inside to that temperature, some through the use of dry ice, some through incredible sort of cutting edge insulation technology, which will trap the cold air inside. But essentially, when they load into the plane, they'd be much like any other pharma payload, albeit some may need to be plugged into the electrical system as well to keep them cool. So that's the good news. Most containers can be carried on the planes themselves, but the problem doesn't stop with the aircraft, of course.
So this comes at an interesting time, of course, for the airline industry, not just because you mentioned that it has been decimated by the pandemic, but at the same time, for cargo carriers, this is the busiest shopping time of the year, and it's already shaping up to be a big shopping time. So how do they balance getting people's Christmas and holiday orders to them while getting these vaccines to frontline workers?
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, this is in one sense, the cargo planes are all out there at almost record utilization, and that's gone on through the whole of the summer actually, because so many passenger planes are out of action. The cargo planes have been needed. Now we've got that huge stocking up phase before the holidays. They're operating flat out. And what the WHO and other organizations have been stressing to those operators is, look, please keep those planes running into the first quarter at full availability, because we're going to need them. Now, there's likely to be some overlap, potentially, and some of those freighter planes will be spoken for over the next few weeks at the initial start, perhaps, of the Pfizer rollout. But realistically speaking, once you get into the first few weeks of December, most of that stocking up has been completed, and that freighter capacity will be released, and hopefully with it, more cargo planes coming back on stream.
You write about what Lufthansa is doing, and I think people who've traveled know that Lufthansa is a large passenger carrier, but it's also one of the world's largest freighters as well. What specifically is Lufthansa doing in order to make sure that they're prepared to transport this cargo?
Lufthansa's got probably look at this. There are three kinds of airline that are going to be involved here. The dedicated freighter operators, whether that's the likes of FedEx or Cargolux in Europe. Then you've got the really big passenger airlines that have got major freight operations, and that means having dedicated freighter planes as well as their passenger aircraft. And Lufthansa's got a huge cargo hub in Frankfurt, which is very, very well used to carrying pharma payloads. But more importantly than that, perhaps, what they have is a huge hangar that's dedicated to pharma. And that's really what's required, because it's no good just being able to carry these specialist container on the plane. You need to be able to store them before and after they fly. And for many experts, that's the vulnerable part of the supply chain. So Lufthansa's got a huge facility in Frankfurt that can store, that can certainly chill things down to approaching the temperatures required if necessary, but can also store, for example, the Astra vaccine that is at a refrigerated rather than a deep frozen temperature, in relative safety. And there's a handful of major airlines around the world. There are probably about 20 hubs that specialize in pharma. Some major hubs, some very specialist hubs that are going to be the absolute linchpin to this distribution effort.
Christopher Jasper, Northwest England, excuse me. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.